not be using previous concepts from set theory, combinatorics, mathematical logic. Those concepts we won't be using. So you can, if you have any doubt in those concepts or previous chapters, then it doesn't matter to this, this chapter. So just focus on this chapter, and it is actually comparatively very easy chapter. It is a small chapter because all we need to see is four properties. Once these four properties are over, automatically this complete group theory chapter will be over. So first let me show you what are those four properties. Let's see those. So first property that we need to see is what is associative property. We have already seen this associative property in previous chapters, but I will don't worry, I won't be skipping it. Let's take example and let's see what is a associative property. So you might already know this. What is this associative property? That in mathematics also we have seen this. For example, if we have this thing x plus y plus z, then we know that if we first compute this, then this is actually equal to this. So this is associative property. You can see here what I am doing, I am first computing this second plus. You can see this second plus I am computing first, but here what I am doing, I am computing the first plus first. So this first plus I am computing first, then this second plus. Similarly here the second plus I am computing first and then the first plus. So associative property says that if you can do this, okay, if basically if this is equal to this, then we say that this plus operation is associative. Okay, so you already know in mathematics, this addition operation, this plus operation is associative. We already know this thing. For example, 2 plus 3 plus 4. So if you compute this first, then what will be the result will be total 9, because this will be 5 plus 4 9. If you compute this first, then what will be the result will be 2 plus 7, that is also 9. So you can see in mathematics we already know that this addition operation is associative, because basically we can do in any manner. If we have two consecutive operations, if we have this associative property says this, if we have two consecutive operation, like something is here, something is here, something is here, so you have two consecutive same operation is basically sitting consecutively, then associative property says that you can either compute like this, or or you can compute like this. So this is the associative property, you already know. Now can anyone tell me this subtraction operation in mathematics, in general mathematics, this subtraction operation, is it associative or not? Anyone want to try? This subtraction operation is associative or not? This is our question. Right. So you can check it out, because you can check it out for by taking some example. Also you can check it out. If you have this subtraction operation sitting next to it, for example, if you have this thing, now if I compute this, let's assume if I compute this first subtraction first, so what I do, I compute like this. In second in say like another person what can do, another person can do like this, so now what will be the result here? The result here will be -1 -5, and that will be -6. This will be the result here. What will be the result here? Result here will be 2 minus, this will be -2, and the final result will be 4. You can see these results are not same. So this subtraction operation in mathematics, we already know this is not a associative operation. Of course this is an example that has proven that associativity is violated, because associativity says that if same operation is sitting side by side, if same operation is sitting side by side, then you can compute either this first or this second first. The result will be same. This is the associative property. So hopefully you know this associative property. Let's take one example and let's try to solve it. So take this example. my operation that I'm giving to you. So I'm defining an operation. Your the base set, basically the base set is going to be natural numbers, and this is some operation. Okay, this is some operation star. Basically, this is not a multiplication. I am going to define this operation. So I am going to define this operation like this: a star b actually is nothing but a plus b plus ab. This is our operation. Are you getting my point? I am saying that this is our base set, so you only need to consider elements from natural number. So you only need to consider the natural numbers. Okay, and I am defining a new operation. This new operation behaves like this: whenever this new operation I apply to two elements a comma b, these a comma b are from this set n. Whenever I apply this operation on a comma b, then the result is this, and this plus is basically addition operation. So if I have 3 star 4, then the result will be 3 plus 4 plus 20, this a dot b. So there is multiplication here, so this will be 3 plus 4 plus 12, and the result will be basically 19. So you got the idea. Basically, this is a newly defined operation. So this is the operation that I have defined. Now you need to check whether this star operation is associative or not. Check it. Try this. Check whether this star operation is associative or not. And this star operations behavior has been given to you. Everyone try this. This is a very easy chapter. Just four operations we need to see for, like this associativity is the first operation, or you can say property. Four properties we need to see. This associativity is the first property. Let's check it out. So this star operation has been given to you: a star b. This is given to you like this: a plus b plus ab. This is given to you. Now we need to check whether this star is a associative operation or not. So to check that, what you have to do, just take three numbers and check whether this thing is equal to this thing or not. This is what you have to check. Okay, remember, this is whenever I ask you to check for associativity, do not take particular examples. Do not take values like 2, 3, 5. These kind of values do not take, because for some values associativity might hold. Okay, for other values associative might not hold. Okay, so that's why whenever I ask you to, whenever from now on I ask you to check for associativity, then just directly check for random values. Basically, take three variables a b c and check it out. So all you need to do is just check whether these two are equal or not. So what is this a star b? What is a star b? A star b is a plus b plus ab. This is our a star b star c. Now consider this. Let's assume this is some x and this is some y. Then what will be this star c? This star c will be this plus this plus this multiplied by this. So this is our left hand side. This final, this result is our left hand side, this thing. Now let's see what is this. So a star, what is b star c? That is b plus c plus bc. Again, what is a star? This thing, what is this? A plus b plus c plus bc plus a multiplied by b plus c plus bc. Let's see whether these two sides, so this thing and this thing, are equal or not. So okay, a is there, let's cut it out. Let's just cut it out. A, b is there, b, cut it out. C is there, okay, let's cut it out. Now what is there? There will be ab. From here we will get ab, right? So let's cut it out. This ab will cut it out, now from here we will get ac. So we will get AC from here also. So you can just cut it out also. Now from here we will get ABC. ABC. Now that ABC we can get from here. So we can cut it out from here also. Now we got BC here and BC here. So finally both sides are equal. You can see both sides are exactly equal. So yes, this star operation is associative. So everyone got the correct answer. And if you did not get the correct answer, now you can like now you can get the answer. Okay, so let's move on. So this was our first property, associative property. Okay, this was easy. We have already discussed this associative property in mathematical logic, also in set theory. We have already discussed it one or two times. So we have again discussed it. Okay, let's see the next property that we are going to check. The second property is, that is commutative property. Commutative property. And this property is actually much more easier than the associative property, because in commutative property we only need to check if we have some operation. Let's assume some operation is there. Okay, this star is some operation. Remember, this star is not multiplication. Okay, whenever I will write multiplication, I will write like this. Okay, so this star is some operation. It could be any operation. So if this property is satisfied by this star operation, basically this property a star b is equal to b star a, if this property, this simple property, is satisfied by this star operation, then we will call this star as a commutative operation. What we will call it? Commutative operation. So this is again very easy thing. That's why I am saying that this is the most easiest, you can say most easy chapter in complete discrete mathematics, because we have some properties, some four or five properties. Once we learn how to check for these properties, this chapter is over. Now try we already know this. Okay, for example, let's take example one. So you already know that this addition operation is commutative, because you can either do a plus b, or you can do b plus a. You already know that this plus operation is, because 2 plus 3 is actually equal to 3 plus 2. So addition operation is commutative. Multiplication operation is also commutative. Can anyone tell me whether this subtraction operation is commutative or not? Anyone want to tell me this subtraction operation is commutative or not? Okay. Can anyone tell me this division operation is commutative or not? Right. So these operations are not commutative. Why? Because if you see a minus b, then that is not equal to b minus a. You can see it. 2 minus 3 is actually not equal to 3 minus 2. So this subtraction operation is not commutative in our general mathematics. It is not commutative. Similarly, division operation also, you know that 4 divided by 2, this is actually not same as 2 divided by 4. You can see. So these two are not same. So division operation is also not commutative. So now you have gotten it. You very easily you can find this, whether operation is commutative or not. So let's check whether you can find this, the same star operation that we had defined. If you remember that star operation, a plus b plus ab, try this star operation is commutative or not? Okay, so let's see this star operation, and this star operation has this behavior. This star operation we are interested in. Let's see whether it is commutative or not. Again, just like for associativity, we checked for two variables. Do not take specific values, directly check for two variables. Take two variables a b, and then check whether a star b is equal to b star a or not. Because when you check for specific values like 2 comma 3, okay, when you check for specific values, then you can be sure that okay, for those specific values your property will hold. But you cannot say that for all the values it will hold. That's why always check for variables, because these variables can be replaced with any values. If for variables this property holds, then for all values this property will also hold. So let's check what is this a star b. A star b is very simple. This is a plus b plus ab. What is b star a? B star a will be b plus a plus ba. Now you can see both of these are exactly equal. A plus b plus ab is equal to b plus a plus ba. Or remember, this is basically here, this is multiplication, this is multiplication. Okay, so now you can check these two are exactly equal. Hence we can say that this property is also commuted. This operation star is also commutative operation. Okay, so we have seen associativity, we have seen commutativity. Now let's see the third operation, and that third operation is identity element. Identity element. What is identity element? So it is very easy thing. In mathematics you already know. Let's take example, then let's understand what is this identity element. In mathematics you already know that i- for multiply operation this element 1 works as a identity element, because you can see if you take any number a multiplied by 1 is equal to a, right? We already know this thing. So this one is known as identity element for multiplication operation. Okay, so because a multiplied by 1 is equal to a itself, so a is coming back again. Also you know that 1 multiplied by a is also a. So this one is called identity element for multiplication operation. Let's take another example. Anyone want to tell me what is the identity element for addition operation? Anyone want to tell me what is the identity element for addition operation? Yes. So for addition operation, the identity element is 0, because when I add 0 to any number, then that number itself comes. Similarly, 0 plus a is also 0 plus a is also a. So this 0 is identity element for addition. So you are getting the idea. Now, if can I ask you what is the identity element for subtraction operation? Identity element for subtraction operation. So okay, you are saying 0. Let's check whether 0 is identity element for subtraction or not. Let's check it out. So we are saying that for subtraction operation, you are saying that 0 is identity element. So a minus 0 will be a, right? This is what we wanted. But 0 minus a is not a. Are you getting my point? So whenever we say identity element for some operation, okay, then let's define it formally. Don't worry, let's define it formally. Let's assume you have some operation star. Star is some operation. Okay, this could be any operation. Let's assume this is some operation. And if we are saying that e is identity element for star operation, then what should happen? It should happen that you take anything here, you can take anything here, then your result must be A. Also E star A also must be A. So this should happen. So whenever you are saying that E is identity element for star operation, then A star E must be equal to A. Also E star A also must be equal to A. In that case, we will say that E is identity element for star operation. So this is the property that we need to check. Okay, you can see for associativity, we have a property to check. Whenever I ask you to check for associativity, then directly all you have to do is just check A star B star C equal to A star, right? So you already know that thing. Similarly for commutativity, we have a property. Similarly for identity element, if you want to check whether there is an identity element or not, then what you can do, then you can just check it out. A star E is equal to A is equal to E star A. Okay, in if this is satisfied, if this is satisfied, then this E will be called identity element for this star operation. So yes, Bhavya was correct, no element, because this 0 minus A for subtraction operation, this 0 is not an identity element because 0 minus A is not equal to A. Okay, let's check example. Let's try our example, the same example. Let's check it. A star B is equal to A plus B plus AB. Of course, I also need to give you the base set, okay, from which this A comma B will be picked. For example, the base set, let's assume the base set is set of all natural number. This is our base set. Basically, this this variable A, this variable B, all are basically natural numbers. Now check it out. This is our base set and this is the operation. This star is the operation. Tell me whether this star is whether there is a identity element for this star operation or not. Also, let me just tell you that this natural number set is nothing but 0, 1, 2. This we have already seen this thing, that I include a 0 in the natural number set. Anyway, check it out. Is there any element which is identity element for star operation? Aditya, have you watched the previous lectures, the previous recordings, mathematical logic and combinatorics? Others, try this question. Okay, no problem. In this chapter, we won't be using, in this and also in graph theory, we won't be using any previous concepts. You can see everything we are looking right now. Okay, so let's see whether there is identity element or not. So how to check for identity element? Let's assume that there is some identity element. Let's assume. Then what should happen? What should happen? A star E should become A and E star A also should become A. So first let's check this thing. First let's check this thing. So A star E. What is A star E? A star E is A plus E plus AE. Now it should become A. So then what you can do, of course, then this means that E plus AE should become 0, right? Because A is A cut. Now basically you can say that E plus AE should become 0. This means that E1 plus A should become 0. So from here what we can say, either E is equal to 0 or A is equal to minus 1. but we are not interested in anything, we are only interested in E. Moreover, there is no -1 in our base set. Basically this variable A is coming from this base set. Also remember, this identity element also should come from this base set. So if this base set had no zero, let's assume this base set had no zero, then there would be no identity element, because everything must come from the base set. So you can see we can just cancel out this thing, because there is no -1 in our base set. Okay, so you can say that from this we can conclude that, from this, only from this we can conclude that E equal to 0 is maybe our identity element. But we also need to check this thing, but actually you can check it, this thing also you can check it, your identity element will come out to be 0. The reason why I can say this without checking, why I can say this, because we have already seen that this star operation is commutative. So basically this A star E is equal to E star A. This we have already seen, right? So we do not need to check again. Are you getting my point? I am saying that of course you can check it out, you can again write A equal to E plus A plus EA, you can write it and you can check it out. But I am saying that we have already seen that this star operation is commutative, hence this A star E is equal to E star A, so you do not have to check again. Okay, so this is how you can optimize your, like, once you if you already know that your operation is associative, then you only need to check one side, and this one side will give you any side you can check, whether you can check this side or this side. So basically this E equal to 0 will be your identity element for this operation on this base set. So this, all these things you must know, like this is identity so this 0 is identity element for this operation star on this base set. Because if we change the base set, if I remove this 0 from base set, then you will see that there will be no identity element. So everything matters. Okay, this base set also matters, this operation also matters, both the things matter. Okay, if you change base set, then things may change. If you change the, you can say, if you change this operation, then also things may change. So these two things matter, what is your base set and what is your operation. Let's see. So this is your identity element, so you know. Okay, let's check it out, the next property. So we have seen three properties so far: associativity, commutativity, and the third is identity element. Now let's check what is fourth is inverse. So again, before we check the formal definition of inverse, let's take one example. So addition operation, let's take one example, addition operation. Now inverse says that if I have some element, for example 3, then what should I put here such that we get identity element for this addition operation? What is the identity element for addition operation? Anyone want to tell me? Anyone? What is the identity element for? Yes, so 0. Now I am saying that inverse, what does this inverse means? Inverse means this 3, of course this operation is addition operation. So inverse means that what should I put here such that I get identity element? So what should I put here? Anyone want to tell me what's? Yes, Bhavya is saying -3. So if I put -3 here, then I will get 0. So I can say that for this 3, this -3 is inverse. For this 3, this -3 is inverse for addition operation. Okay, also you must also check this side also, you must check, of course. Just like in identity element, we checked this side and also this side. So again, you have to put -3. So since this side also giving us -3, this side also giving us -3, that means that this -3 is inverse of 3. This -3 is inverse of 3 for this addition operation. Now uh, can anyone tell me what is the inverse of 5 for multiplication operation? operation is multiplication operation. What is the inverse of 5? Right. So you already know this thing, but let me go formally. I want to say that, okay, what is the inverse of 5? Then what should happen? You already know this is the identity element for multiplication. You already know this thing. This is the identity element. So I am saying, what should I put here such that I will get 1? So you already know what should I put here. I should put 1 by 5 here. Then I will get 1. Also, what should I put here such that I will get 1? So I should put 1 by 5. Hence we can say that this 1 by 5 is inverse of 5 for this multiplication operation. So you can see there is one more thing you can check it out. So this inverse is basically similar to checking for identity element. We have seen how to check for identity element, and checking for inverse is also similar to checking for identity element. You can see these two sides you have to check. So what is the difference? The difference is here. You can see the identity element was fixed element, unique element. For example, for addition operation, this was fixed 0. For for multiplication operation, this was fixed 1. For the operation, for the star operation that we have seen, the star operation a plus b plus ab, for that this identity element was 0. So you can see this identity element was a fixed element for any operation. Okay, for multiplication it was 1, for addition it was 0. So you can see this identity element is a fixed element for any operation. But what about this inverse? This inverse is depends on the element you are taking. For example, if I'm for this operation, for this multiplication operation, the inverse of 3 will be 1 by 3, the inverse of 4 will be 1 by 4, the inverse of 5 will be 1 by 5. So basically the inverse of a will be 1 by a. So you can see this inverse basically is depending on the element you are taking. This but this identity element is fixed for some operation and the base set. Of course the base set also must be given. In all the examples that we have seen, you have answered 1 by 5, you have answered 1 minus 3. In all these examples basically, I have not given you the base set, so you can consider real numbers as base set. But of course base set will also matter. But just for understanding purpose, I have not told you this thing. Once you understand the concept of inverse, then we will see it formally how. So hopefully you got this point. I am saying this identity element is basically fixed for any operation, but this inverse element, basically inverse is a with respect to some element. So this 1 by 3 is inverse of 3, this 1 by 4 is inverse of 4, this 1 by 5 is inverse of 5. But we do not say like this, that this 0 is identity element of 5. That is because 0 is fixed. You can take any element and the 0 will remain as an identity element. So this is the difference between inverse and identity element. Now let's check what is the formal definition of inverse. So the formal definition is like this. Assume you have some base set. So this is again your base set, some base set is there, and assume this is some operation, it could be any operation. Then inverse, of course, one more thing you should know. In the definition of inverse, what I have said like this: if you take any element, then what should I put here such that I will get identity element? So in the definition of inverse, before finding the inverse, I should find what is the identity element, because you can see this is the definition of inverse, and in this definition of inverse I need to use identity element. So before finding inverse, always go to find identity element. Remember, if identity element does not exist, let's assume identity element does not exist, then your inverse will also not exist. So before going to find inverse, always find identity element, because you will need to use this identity element in the definition of inverse. Now let's check it out. So what I'm saying, assume that this is your base set and this is some operation, and let's assume this e is our identity element, because of course it must exist. Because if identity element does not exist, then Inverse also cannot exist because in the definition of inverse we have this identity element. So assume that this S is base set, this star is operation, and this is identity element. Then if you take any element A in this S, if you take any element A, then its inverse will be basically A inverse. Let me write A inverse. A inverse means inverse of A. So this, remember, this A inverse is not 1 by A. This is not the case because uh, this star operation is not necessarily multiplication operation. Okay, if this star operation was multiplication operation, then we would have said that A inverse is 1 by A. Okay, this A inverse is some element. This A inverse is some element. Okay, this only means that A inverse is inverse of A. Now, or maybe without for, so that you do not confuse, let me write B here. So I am saying that this B is inverse of A if and only if A star B should be equal to A, and also B star A should be equal to E. So basically, for if you take any element A and if you can find such B, okay, if you can find such B, then you will say that this B is inverse of A. Okay, this B is inverse of A. So this is the formal definition of inverse. So you need to check this side also, you need to check this side also. But again, of course, if your operation is commutative, then A star B is equal to B star A. So if your operation is commutative, then you do not need to check both sides. Okay, but if your operation is not commutative, then you will definitely need to check both sides. Let's take example. Try this, the same operation. The base set is set of all natural numbers, and the operation is star, and this star is defined like this: A star B is equal to A plus B plus AB. Try for this question. You have already let me give you the identity element that you have already found out. This 0 is the identity element, you already know this thing. So now check whether this star operation, check what will be the inverse of A. Your question is what will be the inverse of A, so you need to find A inverse. What will be the A inverse? Right, Sanjeev. But you do not need to say no inverse in N because all these things are given to you. You can just directly say that no inverse for A. For some elements, inverse may exist. For some elements, inverse may exist, but you can directly say that. Of course, if there is at least one element for which inverse does not exist, let's assume there is only let's assume there is some element for which inverse does not exist, and for all other elements inverse exist, then you can directly say that no inverse exists. Because inverse, if you are saying that inverse exists, then it should exist for all the elements. If it is not existing for at least one element, then you can say inverse not existing. Let others also try. Anyone want to give answer? Okay. Harshita, Aditi, Gayatri, are you trying? Okay, let me give solution. You can check. So we are asking. Okay, let's check. So we are asking what will be the inverse of A. Let's assume that inverse of A is B. Let's assume. Then what should happen? It should happen that A star B should be equal to 0. Of course, this also should be equal to B star A, but we already know that this star operation is commutative, so we do not need to check that side because A star B anyway is equal to B star A. So let's check this side. A star B is equal to 0. This should happen. Then what is A star B? That is A plus B plus AB is equal to 0. Now, so what will be the A inverse? So actually it should A inverse, basically this should be equal to 0. Then what should happen? A plus B plus AB, this should be equal to 0. Then if you take A plus AB plus B equal to 0, then you can take the A common and it will be A1 plus B is equal to 0. So actually this means that you need some element like this. You need some element like this in your set. Some element like this in your set you need. Some minus B divided by 1 plus B. This kind of element you need in your set. So of course this kind of element can not exist because we know that this B is positive because our base set is natural numbers. So this complete number is actually negative. So we can say that inverse does not exist for A. You can also check it out like if your A is, then what you can do to make it 0. So uh, A is equal, so if you take A B equal to 0, then it will be, yeah, right. So you can see there is no inverse because you need this element in your set, this kind of element. Of course, if your base set was real numbers, then you would have said that okay, this is your inverse for A. But since your base set is okay, so sorry, actually I should find B. I should find B. So I should solve it for B. If I'm solving it for B, then I will get minus A divided by 1 plus A. This is actually okay. So because I should solve for B because I'm interested in finding B. A is given. A is given. I'm interested in finding B. So I should solve for B. So this will be minus A divided by 1 plus A. And since A is positive because our base set is natural number, hence this complete thing is negative. So this does not belong to our base set. Hence we can say that there is no inverse exists for this basically for this element A under this operation in this base set. Okay, so now you got the idea, the basic idea you have already gotten. Let me check one more question I want to give. Let me think what is that question. Right, so Right. Let me give you this question. What is that question? Yes, set of real numbers and operation is multiplication. Operation is multiplication, set of all real numbers. You need to tell me what is the identity element of, okay, this is multiplication operation, set of real numbers. What is the identity element of 1? What is the identity element of -1? What is the identity element of 0? Try this question. This might seem easy, but some trickery is involved. Try this question. Actually, this is not that question. I can't think. There is a question that has some trickery. This is not that question. But of course, try to check it. If I directly ask you, if I do not give you these elements, if I directly ask you, then you already know that this is associative, this is commutative. There is identity element also. The identity element is 1. Now, if I ask you whether inverse exists for this Arcomax or not, then what will be your answer? If I directly ask you what if this inverse exists or not, if I directly ask you, then what will be your answer? Because you might think that for any element A, this 1 by A will work as a inverse. For any element A, this 1 by A might work as a inverse. But what about 0? What will be the inverse of 0? Anyone want to try? What will be the inverse of 0? Aditi, there is no such number. Non there. This infinity is not a number. This is just an idea. Infinity is not a number. Infinity is not a real number. It is neither real number. It is nor it is integer. It is natural. It is not. It is just an idea. It is not a number. Okay. So let's see. For this 0, what happens? You can see your base set is real numbers. Your operation is multiplication operation. For you already know that the identity element is 1. This you already know. Now for any element A, you know that what will be its inverse? Its inverse will be 1 by A, because for any real number 1 by A also exist in this set of real numbers. Hence you can say that for A, this 1 by A is inverse. But what about 0? Let's see. So let's assume that some element B is sorry, let's assume that some element B is inverse of 0. Then what should happen? 0 multiplied by B must become 1, right? So 0 multiplied by B must become 1. What you can put here such that 0 multiplied by that thing will become 1? You cannot put anything here, because whatever number you put here, whatever number you put here, your result can never become 0. Sorry, your result can never become 1. Okay, remember that this you cannot put 1 by 0, because 1 by 0 is you can say is not allowed. You already know this thing. 0 by 0 is indeterminate form. These things you already know. So 0 is never allowed in the denominator. 0 is never allowed. Okay, so you can see no number you can put. You cannot put any number such that it will become 1. Hence for this 0, no inverse exists for this 0, no inverse exists. For all other elements, inverse is existing, but for this 0 inverse is not existing. Hence I can say that for this thing, for this r comma x, for this r comma multiplication, inverse does not exist. So remember these things, these kind of things. Okay, because for all other elements, okay, for all elements except 0 inverse is existing. So then maybe you can say that okay, inverse exists for this r comma multiplication, but that is not the case. Because if you can find at least one element for which inverse does not exist, then you can say that for this r comma multiplication inverse does not exist. Okay, so hopefully you got this point, that this is the point of this question basically. Okay, let's see. So you have seen all the properties, and last property we will see. You have seen all the 5 properties, and the last property is closure. Last property is closure. So what is this closure property? This is very easy. You have some base set and you have some operation. Then if you take any two elements from this base set, if you take any two elements from this base set and you apply this operation, then this result also must go to S, also must go to S. So in, if this is happening, if this is happening, that this result also must go to S, or basically this result also must belong to S. If this is happening for all the pairs, for all the pairs a comma b, then we will say that this star is closed under S. Then what we will say? We will say star is closed under, so sorry, we will say S is closed under star. We will say this base set is closed under star. This is just a terminology. Basically this is just a terminology. We are saying that if you take any two elements from this set S, if you apply this operation star, the result also must belong to S. If this is happening for all the pairs, for all the elements that you are taking, then we will say that S is closed under star. S is closed under star. This property is called known as closure property. Let's take an example. Don't worry. Let's take an example. Let's assume your base set is N and your operation is plus. Can anyone tell me, is N closed under plus? Your question is N closed under plus? Anyone want to try this? Gayatri, any doubt? You are not trying? You did not try this last question? Okay, anyone? So is this N closed under plus? Right. So yes, this is closed, because if you take any two elements, if you take any two elements from N, so this A belongs to N, this B belongs to N, if you sum them, if you add them, then of course your result will also become natural number, right? For example, 0 plus 0, this can become 0. You can take any two elements, you can take any two elements, and your result will also become a natural number, because natural number plus natural number, the result is also natural number. So you can say that this N is closed under plus. So you know, this basically, this thing, this N comma plus, this is satisfying closure property. This pair is satisfying closure property. Let's take another example. Now what I am doing, I am changing the, okay, let's change the this okay, so your base set is this 1 2 3 4. This is your base set and your operation is plus. Now can you tell me, does this pair satisfy closure property? Does this pair satisfy closure property? right? So this is not satisfying closure property, because if you take, for example, if you take 3 comma 4, if you sum them, then result will be 7, and this 7 does not belong to our base set. So you can see that closure property is violated. Okay, so closure property is very simple property. It is saying that a star b, basically a star b must also belong to our base set. If you take any two elements, then if you apply the star operation, then the result must also belong to base set. This is the closure property. You can see this pair does not satisfy closure property, because if you take 3 comma 4 or 3 comma 3 or 2 comma 3 or 4 comma 4, then then the result will not belong to base set. So if you can find at least one pair, if you can find or at least one pair, if you can find, then you can say, okay, at least one pair such that closure property is violated, then you can say that this pair, this this pair does not satisfy closure property. So we have seen all the properties that are required. We have seen 5 properties: associative property, commutative property, identity element, how to find identity element, how to find inverse, and also closure property. All these 5 properties we have seen. If there is any doubt, then kindly ask me, because now actually this chapter is over. Because now, once we have seen these properties, now there is nothing remaining in this chapter. Now we need to just see some theory. Okay, so these 5 operations are important, very much important. If you have any doubt, then ask right now, so that we can move to our theory part. Anyone has any doubt? Okay, Gayatri, any doubt? Okay, let's move on. So let's now check this. Now this is actually theory only. So this subject name is group theory. And the definition of binary operation, the first thing is definition of binary operation. So uh, what is the definition of binary operations? You already know what is a binary operation. For example, binary operation means the operation which applies on two operands. Okay, a comma b, the operation which is applied on two operands, that is known as binary operation. Also, actually, in our group theory, remember, in our group theory, whenever we say binary operation, then that means two things. That means two things. The first thing is, of course, it should apply on two operands. The first thing is that, let's assume I am saying that star is a binary operation, then two things must satisfy. The first thing that must satisfy is this star must apply on two operands. So there must be two operands. The second thing that must satisfy is closure property. We have already seen closure property. That is why I am saying that once you have seen these 5 properties, now this chapter is over, because now we are only going to use these properties only. So we have already seen how to check for closure property. And so basically, the definition of what is the definition of binary operation? Binary operation is a operation which is applied on two operands. Okay, two operands. Also, it must be closed under the given base set. Of course, a base set must also be given. Let's assume S is a given base set and this star is an operation. So we will call this star as a binary operation if it is closed. So basically, this if this base set is closed under this star operation, in that case we will say that this star is a binary operation. This is the definition of binary operation. You can see this closure properties is, you can say, is implicit in the definition of binary operation. You can check it out. If G is a non-empty set, so this G is your base set. Basically, this G is your base set, and this star is some operation that is defined on G. Then binary operation is basically, we will call this star as a binary operation if and only if a star b should also belong to G. So if you take two elements from G, then the result also must belong to G. In this case, we will say that this star is a binary operation. So you can see this this closure property is basically implicit in the definition of binary operation. Okay, so you can now easily find a given if you are given a base set and operation, then you can easily find whether that operation is binary operation or not. Okay, in group theory, remember, in group theory this binary operation is defined like this. Okay, so don't confuse this in with other subjects. In other subjects we do not talk about closure property. Okay, actually we do not talk about closure property in other subjects because always this closure property is satisfied, but we do not care about it. It is already satisfied. Okay, so in group theory we have to bother about these things because this group theory is based on these properties only. Okay, so let's move on. So this is the definition of binary operation. Now the next theory, now this is mostly actually we are going to see the theory only because we have already covered all the properties. So what he is saying, this definition, so for a binary operation on G cross G, okay, so basically he is saying that your G is base set and the star is binary operation. This G is your base set and the star is some binary operation that is defined on G. If this is your pair, then the first thing is star is associative if this is the case. So we have already seen this thing, the definition of associativity, the definition of identity element, two-sided identity. What this means? This means A star E must be equal to A, also E star A must be equal to A. So this is the definition of identity element. We have already seen this thing. And this is the definition of inverse element. We also have seen this thing. So this is the definition. You can refer to the slides. We have already discussed all these things. Okay, let's move on. So it's associative property and identity element and the last thing inverse element. Now we have something called semi group, monoid group. So let me give you a hierarchy. See, now actually everything will be fast because we have already seen the operations. The 5 operations that we have seen, they were important. Now we are only going to use those operations. So let's assume that you have this is your base set and this is some operation, this is some binary operation. Then this pair is called this pair is called this pair is called algebraic structure. What I am saying, algebraic structure. This pair is called algebraic structure. Okay, whatever is the definition. So this pair G comma star, this pair is called algebraic structure or groupoid. Okay, either algebraic structure or groupoid. These are the just the names. Of course, these are names given to them. So this pair will be called algebraic structure or groupoid. Groupoid, groupoid, groupoid. If and only if closure property is satisfied. All you need to check is closure property. You do not need to check anything else. You do not need to check associative property. You do not need to check identity. Nothing you need to check. Only you need to check closure property. So remember, this G comma star, this is the base set. This is the operation defined on this base set. This pair will be called is called algebraic structure or groupoid if and only if closure property is satisfied. So all you need to check is closure property. Okay, now let's see another definition. So now this was the definition of algebraic structure or groupoid. So now we are going to have some definitions. So the first definition is algebraic structure or groupoid. So the closure property must be satisfied. The closure property must be satisfied. The next thing is this pair this pair will be called semi group. This pair will be called semi group if and only if this closure property also must satisfy and associative property also must satisfy. So this closure property also must satisfy and associative property also satisfy. Then we will say this pair is called, then this pair is called semi group. Okay, this is the definition basically. Now the next thing is monoid. So this pair G comma star, this is called monoid if and only if closure property also must satisfy, associative property also must satisfy, and identity element also must exist. Okay, so you see we have already seen all these things, closure, how to check for closure property, how to check for associative property, how to find in this identity element. We all know, we know all these things. So this is just a definition that given this base set and operation, this pair will be called monoid if closure property is satisfied. Also associative property must also satisfy and identity element must exist. Okay, now the next thing is group. The next thing is group. So this pair G comma star, this will be called group if and only if closure property must satisfy, associative property must satisfy, identity element also must exist, and inverse also must exist. So inverse for all the elements must exist. So you can see these four things must satisfy, then we will say that this is a group. Now the fifth thing is abelian group. Abelian group. Abelian group. So what is this abelian group? Now this pair G comma star will be called abelian group if and only if all these, of course all these four properties must satisfy, like closure property must satisfy, associative property must satisfy, identity element must exist, inverse must exist, and also commutative property must satisfy. Commutative property must satisfy. So this is your complete thing. This is complete group theory. Now actually group theory is over, because we have already seen these five properties and these are just the definitions. Okay, with practice you will, of course there is no these are just definitions. For example, if I give you some for example, if I give you some pair, if I give you a base set and a operation, okay, just like we have seen, like we were taking base set to be natural number, and this star operation was also defined. So if I give you base set and this operation, then what you have to do, you have to check these properties. Okay, if closure property is satisfied, then directly you can say that it is a algebraic we do not care about all other properties. They can satisfy, they cannot satisfy, we do not care. If as soon as this closure property is satisfied, we can say that this pair is algebraic structure. Also, if closure property is satisfied and this associative property is satisfied, both these things are satisfied, then we will say that this pair is semigroup. Similarly, this is monoid. In monoid, these three properties must satisfy. In group, these four property must satisfy, and in this abelian group, all the five properties must satisfy. So you can see one thing: every groupoid, sorry, every semigroup is a groupoid because you can see every semi group must satisfy two properties: closure property, associative property. So every semi group is a groupoid, you can see, because every semi group satisfies closure property, and so hence we can say every semi group is a groupoid. Also every monoid is a semi group. You can see all these things because you can see this is closure. Now you have added one more property. Also you can see closure and associative are here, but you have added one more constant. You have added one more restriction. Okay, now here you have added one more. Similarly here you have added one more. So you can say that every semi group is a groupoid, every monoid is a semi group, every group is a monoid, every abelian group is a group. Okay, so all these things, I hope all these things are clear. So now let's move on. So this is the definition. You can see a semi group is a non-empty. Basically semi group needs, remember actually why in this slide you can see there is no groupoid or there is no algebraic structure. Why is that? Because in the binary operation, in the definition of binary operation, we have already included this closure property. Okay, in the definition of binary operation, we have already included closure property. So when we say that this star is a binary operation, then it directly means that closure property is satisfied. Okay, so that's why in this slide we do not have any groupoid or algebraic structure. But of course you can refer to this slide. Okay, so if you do not want to find this, of course if you do not know whether this closure property is satisfied or not, then you can find it. And once this closure property is satisfied, then you can say that this operation is binary operation and this pair is algebraic structure or groupoid. Okay, So semi-group means associative property must satisfy. Monoid means monoid is a semi-group with identity element, because semi-group means associative property. Okay, so a monoid means associative property plus identity element. So you can say a monoid is a semi-group with identity element. Group is a monoid with inverse. So all these things we have already seen in this slide. You can see, if you already know that your G comma star is a monoid, you already know, let's assume you already know that this G comma star, this pair is a monoid. Then to check whether this is a group or not, all you have to check is this inverse, because all these three properties you have already checked, and you already know that these three properties are satisfied, because you already know that this is a monoid. So the this property you need to check. So you can say that is a group is basically a monoid with inverse element existing for all elements. Okay, so let's move on. Now this is the definition of abelian group, and in this what we have done, we have just added commutative law. We have just added commutative law. Abelian group is a group satisfying the commutative property. All these things we already have seen. That's why I am saying that this chapter is the easiest chapter, because once you know all these five properties, how to check all these five properties, automatically this chapter is over. Okay, now what is the cardinality or order of a group? So if you have a G base set and you have some operation, then the number of elements in this G is known as cardinality or order of group. For example, the order of a semi group or monoid or group is basically the cardinality of set G, this base set. So this is a simple definition. Of course, this G can be infinite, like we have taken a set of natural numbers along with star operation. So this can be infinite. In that case, we will say that this the order of the group, sorry, the order of this pair, the order of this pair, because this pair may not be group, this pair may be monoid, this pair may be semi group, this pair may be group, this pair may be abelian group, whatever it is, we can say that order of this G comma star is nothing but number of elements in G. Of course, if G is infinite, then we will say that order of G comma star is basically infinite. Okay, this is the definition. This is a very simple definition: cardinality or order of a group. Now, this we have already seen that every every monoid is a semi group, every group is a monoid, every abelian group is a group. So all these things we have already seen. Okay, let's move on. And what is the next thing? These are some examples. So these are some examples. The first example is okay, actually, um this first example is saying that your base set is changing. Okay, these are four questions basically. The base set Z means set of all integers, Q means set of all rational numbers, R means set of all real numbers, C means set of all complex numbers. Anyway, do not worry about complex numbers from gate point of view. Just think ZQR. Okay, form infinite abelian group. So basically it is saying under addition. So he is saying that if your operation is addition operation, then if your base set is either set of integers or set of rational numbers or set of real numbers or even set of complex numbers, then whatever you put here, basically you can either put this base set to be 0, Z or Q or R comma C. This thing is a abelian group because it will satisfy closure property, it will satisfy associative property, it will satisfy identity element, it will satisfy inverse property, and also it will satisfy commutative property. So this is an example. This we have already seen. Actually, this addition operation is commutative, we have already seen. This addition operation is associative, we have seen. The identity element is 0, we have seen. The inverse will exist. Okay, of course. Can anyone tell me this set of natural numbers comma plus? Now my question is this monoid, is this group, is this abelian group, what it is? So you need to check basically what is the highest structure it has. By highest structure I mean that let's assume that it is monoid but not group. Let's assume that it is monoid but not group. Then you will say that this is monoid because monoid is the highest structure that is satisfied by it. Okay, so what is the highest structure that is satisfied? by n comma plus. Anyone want to try this? Aditi, you are saying that it is abelian. So you you know the five properties that abelian must satisfy. Abelian group must satisfy. Those five properties are closure property, associative property, identity element, inverse element, and commutative. What is the inverse of 2? Do you want to tell me? What is the inverse of 2? So you can see there is no inverse for 2. For example, if I ask you what is the inverse of 2, then basically let's assume that inverse of 2 is b. Let's assume that inverse of 2 is b. Then 2 plus b must be equal to 0. So what is b? Then b is equal to minus b. Sorry, b is equal to minus 2. But minus 2 is not here. You can see. So you can say that inverse property is not satisfied by this. Inverse property is not satisfied. And if inverse property is not satisfied, then what is the highest structure it can have? The highest structure it can have is monoid, because monoid does not care about inverse property. Monoid only care about three property: closure, associative, and identity element. So the highest structure that is satisfied by n comma plus is monoid. This n comma plus is not even a group. This is not even a group. So since this is not even a group, then it cannot be abelian group also. The highest structure is monoid, because inverse property is violated. Because inverse does not exist for at least one element, you can find that inverse does not exist. So you can say the highest structure satisfied by this n comma plus is monoid. Okay. But if you change this base set, if you change this base set with z, set of all integers, then it will become abelian group, because z comma plus, if your base set is, you have changed the base set to be set of integers, then inverse property will also satisfy. Because what will be the inverse of a? The inverse of a will be basically minus a. The inverse of 0 will be 0. The inverse of 1 will be minus 1. So now you see inverse property is satisfied, and hence this z comma plus is a abelian group. So the highest structure satisfied by z comma plus will be abelian group. So these are some examples, you can work it out. We have already seen like the this the first thing, we have already seen this thing under addition, under multiplication. Okay. All these things we have already seen. Also we have seen this thing also, that 0 has no inverse under multiplication operation. We have already seen this thing, right? 0 has no inverse. So this first paragraph we have already seen, you can check it out. And this last paragraph you can check this. The even integers, basically only the even integers under multiplication form a semi group, because uh, that is not monoid. Can you tell me, can you check it out, can you prove this claim? He is saying that the set of even integers, okay, even integers means 0 plus minus 2 plus minus 4, this is your even integer, set of all even integers. And the operation is multiplication operation. The operation is multiplication operation. Can you say identity element exist or not? Anyone want to try? Identity element exist or not? Operation is multiplication operation, and base set is set of even integers. Is there any problem like many students are not trying? Is there any doubt? Sanjeev, Harshita, Gayatri, Bhavya, is there any doubt? If there is any doubt, you should ask, because if you do not ask doubt, then how can I resolve it, right? So okay, so the you can check it out. This is your base set of all even integers, and your operation is multiplication. Then you can check that there is no identity element, because uh, w- because the definition of identity element is like this: a multiplied by e must be equal to a, right? So for example, let's take 2 multiplied by e, then it should be equal to 2. So this e should be 1, this e should be 1, but you can see this thing that 1 is not here, 1 is not here, right? So we can say that identity element does not exist because 1 is not here, because 0 is any number is 0, so no identity element. Right. So you are saying that because 0 multiplied by 0, so this actually does not prove that there is no identity element, because maybe 0 is identity element, maybe because this statement, you are saying this statement that 0 multiplied by anything is 0, then maybe 0 is identity element. Now basically you have to also show that 0 is also not identity element. Of course you can easily solve it, right? Are you getting my point, what I'm saying? Okay, anyway, so you got the point. So the point is that identity element can be 1, but 1 is not in our base set. 1 does not belong to our base set. Hence, we can say there is no identity element, and hence the highest structure that is satisfied by this pair is semi-group, because semi-group only cares about closure property and associative property. So these two are satisfied, hence it is a semi-group but not monoid. Okay, and today what you can do, you can check it out. This example, the set of all 2 by 2 matrices, you have the set of all 2 by 2 matrices a b c d with real entries. Basically all these a b c d are real numbers, form monoid under matrix multiplication. So your operation is matrix multiplication, and your base set is set of all 2 by 2 matrices. So this set of all 2 by 2 matrices is your base set, and your operation is matrix multiplication. Okay, matrix multiplication. So now you can go home, and you can today you can check it out. After this lecture is over, you can check it out whether this thing satisfies closure property. Then you can check associative property, then you can check for identity element, then you can check for inverse element, then you can check for commutative property. So you can check all these things, and you need to find the highest structure it satisfies. Okay, highest structure. So you can check the answer actually here. The highest structure that will be satisfied is monoid. So basically this closure property will be satisfied, associative property will be satisfied, identity element will also exist, but inverse property will not satisfy. Basically there will be at least one 2 by 2 matrix you can find for which inverse will not exist. Okay, and so the inverse property will not satisfy, but not a group, since the right. Now you can and this commutative property is not also not satisfied, because matrix multiplication is not commutative. Okay, so the set of all 2 by 2 matrices with real entries form a monoid under matrix multiplication, but not a group, since the set includes many singular matrices. Okay, you can check it out today. The reason is also given. Singular matrix. What is a singular matrix in linear algebra? You will study this thing. Is linear algebra already over? Can anyone tell me? Linear algebra is already over or not? Sanjeev, linear algebra is covered or not? It is over, right? So then it will be easy. You can easily understand this. If anyone has a problem in linear algebra, then you can watch the recordings, because linear algebra is already over. We will not go into linear algebra. Okay, so you can watch the previous recordings and you can make yourself comfortable, and then you can solve this question. Okay, this question I have given the solution. You can see this solution is given. The reason is also given. The reason why inverse does not exist is because all the singular matrices will not have inverse. What is singular matrix? Singular matrix is a matrix whose determinant is zero. If I'm not, like, it's been a long time since I have studied this linear algebra. So you can study this linear algebra, you can refer to the previous recording, and then you can solve this question also again. Okay, so let's move on. We have seen all these examples. You can check these out. What is the next thing? So the next thing is cyclic groups and generators. So first let's see what is a generator. Let's see what is a generator. So generator means, generator is an element basically. If you have some base set, if you have some operation, so this is your base set, this is your operation. Now assume that G belongs to S. So G is some element, G is some element, but this G has a power. What is the power? This G is such an element such that, okay, this is G, not 2, this is G. So this G is such an element that G power, the G can generate all the elements. Basically what I'm saying that if you do, if you do G power n, G power 1, then it will be G. If you do G power 2, okay, remember that power will be defined like this. G square means G star G. This is how we will define power. Okay, G square means G star G. So let's assume G star will generate something, G cube will generate something. So if this G can generate all the elements, okay, all the elements in this S, all the elements in this S, then we will say that this G is a generator because it can generate all the elements. Okay, don't worry, let's take example. Let's take this example. What is the example we need to take? N comma plus. Let's take this example. Okay, let's not take this example because, so let me take this example. uh, Set of all integers comma plus, set of all integers comma plus. So this is our structure. Now I am saying that one one is a generator. Why? The reason is this: 1 power 1 is nothing but 1, so you can generate 1. 1 power 2 is means 1 plus 1, because I have already told you that G square is defined to be G star G, A square is defined to be A star A. This is how we define power in group theory. Okay, this is how we define power. So one square, what is 1 square? That is 1 plus 1, and that is 2. Now you can generate 3 also. 1 cube, 1 cube will be this, because A cube will be A star A star A. This is how we define power. Okay, so this is how we define power. A cube means A star A star A. Now 1 cube will be A 1 plus 1 plus 1, so you have generated 3. So similarly you can generate all the positive integers, all the positive integers. You can generate 4 5 6. So you can see this, just by using this one, you can generate 1 2 3, all these you can generate. Can you generate 0? Can you generate 0? Yes, we can generate 0, because 1 power 0, what is 1 power 0? So 1 power 0 is defined to be identity element. 1 power 0 is defined to be, in our group theory, this a power 0 is defined to be identity element. So what is the identity element? We already know the identity element is 0. So 1 power 0 is 0. This is definition. Remember, this is the definition. In group theory, in this complete group theory, uh, this any a power 0 is defined to be the identity element. So 1 power 0 will be 0. So you have also generated 0, you have also generated 1 2 3, all these positive integers. How can you generate negative integers? Because we need to generate all the elements. So how can we generate negative integers? Let's check how can we generate negative integers. So if I want to generate minus 3, let's see how I can generate minus 3. So sorry, minus 1, let's generate minus 1. So what will be 1 power minus 1? So 1 power minus 1 is nothing but 1 inverse. What is 1 inverse? 1 inverse is nothing but minus 1. You already know this thing, because inverse of 1 is nothing but minus 1. So 1 power minus 1 is minus 1. What is 1 power minus 2? 1 power minus 2 is, you can write like this, you can write like this, 1 power minus 1 whole square. So you can write like this, basically a power minus 2. How can you write it? You can write like this, a power minus 1 power whole square. You can write like this. Okay, so 1 power minus 2 will be 1 power minus 1 power whole square. What is 1 power minus 1? This you already know, minus 1. So minus 1 power whole square. And what is minus 1 power whole square? That is minus 1 plus minus 1. So that is minus 2. So you can see 1 power minus 2 will generate minus 2. Similarly, 1 power minus 3 will generate minus 3. 1 power minus 4 will generate minus 4. So by using this one, basically by using this one, and just so if this is your structure, then this one is a generator, because this one can generate all the elements in this Z. Okay, this one can generate all the elements just by using some power. Okay, by using some different power you can generate all the element. If you want to generate, for example, minus 5, then you can take this n to be minus 5. So this one is a generator because it can generate all the elements in Z. You can check it out that, this 2 is not a generator, because this 2 can generate all the even numbers, but it cannot generate odd numbers. For example, this 2 power 0, we already know 2 power 0 is nothing but identity element, and identity element is 0. So 2 power 0 will generate 0. 2 power 1 is 2. 2 power 2 is 2 plus 2, that is 4. So you can see you can generate all the even integers. 2 power minus 1 is minus 2. 2 power minus 2 is minus 4. So you can generate all the all the even integers. You can generate all the even integers, but you cannot generate odd integers. Hence you can say that this 2 is not a generator. So what is the definition of generator? I hope you got the definition. The definition is very simple. An element is a generator if it can generate all the elements by some power, by having some power, it can generate all the elements. So this is the definition of a generator. Let's see. So in this you can see the generator. So, and also remember, if you have a generator, because not everyone has a generator, uh, if you have a generator in your structure, if I give you some structure like this is your structure, this is base set, this is the operation, this is your structure. If this structure has a generator G, basically if it has some element which can generate all the elements, then we will say that this structure has a generator. So if this structure has a generator, then this structure will be called cyclic group. So this is the definition of cyclic group. So some groups have interesting property, and this is the definition of generator. You can see generator is an element which can generate all the elements. So is called generator. So generator is an element basically which has the property such that it can generate all the elements. Okay, and such a, if your group has generator, then you will call that group as a cyclic group. Okay, for so we have seen this example. Now you can check another example. You can check the another example, that is, this example is actually, in this what he is doing, The trivial group, the trivial example is the group ZM, the additive. Okay, so he has this group and the operation is modulo n. So the operation is plus m. Okay, what is this plus m? Let me define this plus m. So you already know this plus. This is the addition operation. This plus is the addition operation. But what is the, if I write like this plus m, then it will mean additive modulo m. Additive modulo m. So what it means, let me tell you. Let's assume you have this set. This is your base set 1 2 3 4. This is your base set. We have already seen this base set. If I give you this addition operation, then closure property will be violated. We have already seen this thing. Okay, but if I give you this, if I change this operation, and if I change this operation slightly, and if I write like this 5, okay, let's also include 0 also. Let's include 0 also. So 0 1 2 3 4, and now my operation I have changed. So my operation is plus modulo 5. So it means that the operation is like this. The operation is like this. A plus modulo 5 is nothing but a plus b mod 5. This is our operation. Okay, a plus b mod 5. You already know, I hope you already know this mod 5, how it works. So this is just a remainder operator. So what will happen now? If you will do 3 plus 3, this 3, remember this is our operation. Plus is not our operation. Our operation is plus 5. Plus 5 means plus modulo 5. So now if you will do this, then what will happen? 6 mod 5. And what is 6 mod 5? 6 mod 5 is 1. So now you can see the closure property will satisfy, because you can take any two elements and the result will also belong to this set, because you already know this mode will give you remainder, and mode 5 have only 5 remainders: 0 1 2 3 4. These are the only remainders possible. Okay, so this is a new operation that we have defined, plus modulo 5. Basically first apply plus, then take mode. This is our operation. If this is our operation, then you can see now closure property will also satisfy, and this plus operation is associative. This identity element also exists. Identity element is 0. You can check it out. Now for this structure, inverse element will also satisfy. For example, what is the inverse of 1? Can anyone tell me what is the inverse of 1? Inverse of 1. What is the inverse of 1? Anyone? Anyone want to try? What is the inverse of 1? See, identity element is 0, but minus 1 does not belong to this base set. This is our base set, and actually minus 1 is not inverse. Remember, operation is not plus. Operation is plus modulo 5. Operation is plus modulo 5. So if you have A, if you have B, if you apply this plus modulo 5, then this is not A plus B, but it is A plus B mod 5. This is our operation. This is our operation. This is different from plus. So this plus 5 is not plus. This is plus 5. Plus 5 means first you do plus, then you take mod. This is your result. So remember, 3 plus 3 is 6, but 3 plus this is 1. So you can see this plus 5 is actually different from this plus. Okay, this plus 5 has this meaning: first you do the plus, then you take the mod. So this is our operation. Now if you want to find what is the inverse of 1, then the inverse of 1 is 4, because let's check it out. Inverse of 1 is 4. So now 1 plus 4 mod 5. And what is 1 plus 4 mod 5? 5 mod 5. 5 mod 5 is 0. So you can see the inverse of 1 is 4. Okay, similarly the inverse of 4 will be 1. The inverse of 2 will be 3. The inverse of 3 will be 2. The inverse of 0 will be 0. So you can see inverse also exist. Are you getting my point? Have you got is everyone got this operation, this plus modulo 5? Anyone has any doubt? Plus modulo 5, this is a new operation we have defined. Okay, you can define like in group theory you will have any random operation that they will define anything they want. Okay, so you should take care. Whatever is the operation given to you, first understand that operation. Don't worry, in question it will be given what is the meaning of the operation. So they will tell you the operation is additive modulo 5. Additive modulo 5, this means first you do the addition, then you take the mod. So now you can see. Now can I ask you what is the generator here? Anyone want to tell me what is the generator here? Is there any element which is a generator? Anyone want to try? What is the generator here? Remember, generator is an element, is an element which can generate all the elements by taking powers. By taking different powers, it can generate all the elements. Okay, let me tell you again. So let's check whether 0 is generator or not. Let's check. So 0 power 1, what is 0 power 1? That is 0. Okay, what is 0 power 2? 0 power 2 is 0 plus 5, 0. What is this? This is 0 plus 0 mod 5. And what is this 0? So you can see 0 power 1 is 0, 0 power 2 is 0. Similarly you can see 0 power 3 will be 0. You can check, actually 0 cannot generate anything else other than 0. 0 can only generate 0, and the reason is because 0 is identity element. Since 0 is identity element, hence if you take anything with the identity element, then okay, if you take any power, for example, since 0 is identity element, if you take 0 square, then it will be 0. If you take 0 cube, then it will be 0, because 0 is identity element. Okay, so 0 plus this thing also will become 0. So you can see that 0 cannot generate anything other than 0. You can check 1. 1 power 1 is 1. What is 1 power 2? 1 power 2 is 2. You can check. 1 power 2 is 2. 1 power 3 is 3. 1 power 4 is 4. 1 power 5 is 0. So you can see that this one can generate all the elements. This one can generate this one can generate this one can generate this one can generate this, also this one can generate this. So this one can generate all the elements, hence this one is a generator. Is there any doubt in the definition of generator? Anyone? So this one is a generator. Now you can see, if you have a generator, then your group will be called cyclic group. If so, of course, first you have to check whether your group is a first you have to check whether your structure is a group or not. Once you have checked whether your structure is group or not, let's assume that your structure is a group, then you can check whether there exists a generator or not. If there exists a generator, means if there exists an element which can generate all the elements, then you will call this group as a cyclic group. So this is your definition, this is your example. Okay, so let's move on. So this is another example. You can check it out. This is another example. Now of course there can be more than one generator, of course. So this example will tell you that there can be more than one generator. You can check it out. You can check it out. This um, for example, of course, in the previous example, if you see in the previous example, what we have in previous example, 0 1 2 3 4, this was our previous example, right? Plus mod 5. So this was our previous example. We have seen that this one is a generator, we have seen this thing. But this 2 is also a generator, because 2 power 0 is identity element, that is 0. 2 power 1 is 2. 2 power 2 is 4, 2 power 3 is 1. What is 2 power 3? You can see we have already discussed this thing, that how this power is defined. So this power is defined like this: 2 2 power 3 means 2 star 2 star 2. So whatever your operation is, so your operation is plus mod 5. So this, what it will become, it will become 2 plus 2 plus 2 mod 5. So it will become 6 mod 5. 6 mod 5 means 1. So you can see now this 2 can also generate all the elements. This 2 can also generate 3 also. You can check 2 power 4. 2 power 4, what it will give you? It will give you 3. 2 power 4 will give you 3. So you can see there can be more than one generator. This one is also generator, this two is also generator. You can check it out. You can check whether this three is generator or not. You can check whether this four is generator or not. So there may be more than one generator. It might also be the case that there is no generator. Okay, also it might be the case that there is exactly one generator. So if there is at least one generator, then that group will be known as cyclic group. If there is no generator, then that group will not be called cyclic group. There may be more than one generator. For example, one is also generator here, two is also generator here. Generator is an element which can generate everything by some power. Basically, if you just change the power, then you can generate everything. So this is the definition of generator. This is the definition of cyclic group. Okay, hopefully you got it. Any doubt you can ask. Now we have again remember that identity element can never be the generator. This identity element can never be the generator. Why? The reason is this: you already know the property of identity element. Let's assume you already know this is the property of identity element, because if you apply identity element with anything, then you will get the result that. So I am saying that identity element can never be the generator. Why? Because if you make power of e, for example, if you make power of e, then it will be e star e. E star e will be e only, because the identity, if you apply this star operation with identity element, then the result will be this only. So you can generate, you can see that identity element can only generate identity element. Identity element can never generate any other element, because identity element has this property that if you take any power e power n, then you will get e only. Okay, by the definition of identity element, because if you apply identity element with any element, then you will get that element. So if you apply identity element with identity element itself, then you will get identity element. So you can see e power n is always equal to e. So this identity element can never be the generator. Okay, so you can see here, this is the, this is in this note actually I have given this only, that identity element can never be the generator. Okay, now the next thing, so the next thing is this: we have seen order of a, we have already defined order of a group. So if you have this structure, let's assume you have this structure, then we have already defined the order of the structure. Order of the structure, what was it? We have already defined it. Order of the structure is nothing but the number of elements in G. This was the definition of order of structure. Order of structure, order of this whole structure is nothing but number of elements in this G. This we have already defined. Okay, this we have already defined. Now we can define something called order of an element. What is order of an element? Wait a second, what, the same problem every time? Okay, so now we can define what is the order of an element. So order of an element is defined like this. Same problem. Wait a second. Okay, let's see in this slide. You can see order of an element. If you have some element G, then order of that element is defined to be minimum value n such that G power n is equal to E. You can see here in this slide, you can see the order of an element G. The order of an element G, actually this pen is again doing the same problem. So let me just read this slide. Why this problem is coming, I don't understand. Okay, Anyway, this is the last slide. Let me just read it out. So the order of an element G is defined to be the smallest natural number such that G power n is equal to E. This is the order. Okay, this is a very simple definition. Basically, G power n is equal to E. Smallest natural number n will be called your generator. Sorry, your order of that element. Okay. Now, for example, in our example, in our 0 1 2 3 4 additive modulo 5, in that example you can see, in that example we have already seen that this 2 was a generator, right? And we have seen that 2 power 3 was 1, 2 power 2 power, wait a second. Mm, so what we are saying that the order of an element is defined to be the smallest natural number such that G power n, if such an element exists. So other than 0, of course, other than 0, because if you do the power 0, then you will automatically get the identity element. So other than 0, so for example, you know that 2 power 5 will be 2 power 5 will be identity element 0. You can check it out in our example. In our example where we were having this modulo 5 example, if you see this example, this 0 1 2 3 4, in this example, this 2 power 5 will become 0. So this 5 is your order of 2. So this 5 is order of 2. But of course 2 power 10 is also 0, 2 power 15 is also 0. But the smallest natural number will be called the order of 2. So this 5 is order of 2. So this is the definition of order of an element. This is simple definition. You can just check it out, this definition. Now the next thing is, what is a subgroup? So the subgroup is like this. Subgroup just like subset. Okay, so if you have a G comma star is a group, then subset of G, basically this H is a subset of G, this H comma star. Now we will call this H comma star is a subgroup if and only if this H comma star will also be a group. Basically, of course, this H comma what I am saying this, you have G comma star. Okay, if you take the subset of G, if you take a subset of G, let's assume you take a subset H. Now this H comma star will be called subgroup of G comma star if and only if this H comma star is also a group. So this H comma star must also be a group first. If this H comma star is a group, then we will say that this H comma star is a subgroup of G comma star. Okay, and this subgroup is not important. Okay, don't worry about it. That's why I am not taking examples, because in previous gate exam there is no question on subgroups, but there is question on Lagrange theorem. What is this Lagrange theorem? This Lagrange theorem says that if H is a subgroup of G, then this cardinality of H divides cardinality of G. Okay, so this is Lagrange theorem. The proof of Lagrange theorem is beyond gate level, so we won't go into the proof, but you can just by heart this theorem, because many times, 4 or 5 times in gate exam they have asked this question on Lagrange theorem. So they will give you some group, some finite group, then they will give you some you can say some subgroups they will give you. So the Lagrange theorem says that if G is a finite group and H is a subgroup of G, then this cardinality of H divides cardinality of G. This is our Lagrange theorem. Okay, so with it, actually with this theorem, with this our group theory is over. This group theory is actually relatively very easy chapter, because all you need to know are 5 properties: closure property, associative property, identity element, inverse element, and commutative property. Once you know how to find these 5 properties, then you can easily solve all the questions in this chapter, group theory. Okay, again we have 5 definitions. These property, these 5 properties we have. Then we have a definition of generator. What is generator? So generator is an element which can generate everything by taking different powers. Okay, so that is generator. If your group has a generator, then that group will be called cyclic group. This is another definition. We have seen the definition of monoid, semigroup, group, abelian group. all these definitions also we have seen. Then